All right, now it's time to practice using the graphing functions of the calculator. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure your calculator is on. And you could go ahead and touch the word or push the button graph, but what'll come up is probably nothing, depending on if your calculator has something in it already. But we want to graph a function, and we're going to graph this function y equals 200 minus 10x. So what we're going to do is we need to go to the y equals button. It's this button. It's the top left button on the calculator. This button will get used a lot. Your calculator may not have color like mine. That might seem like a bummer, but that's actually a good thing because the ones with color take forever to graph. So when you look at this menu, you should see Y1, Y2, Y3, Y4, basically just a bunch of different places to input functions. So remember, when we've talked about functions, we've often talked about them as the function of x. So you might be familiar with seeing f of x equals 200 minus 10x. It's important that we know that f of x is our dependent variable like y. So in the calculator, I'm going to see y equals. All right, so in the screen, and again, you get here no matter where you are. Oops, see, I was back here. You get to the screen by pushing the y equals button. So in the screen, you now are going to enter this equation, 200 minus 10x. It's really important that you listen to me about how to get that variable x. So we go to our menu down here and we type 200. And then on this menu with all of our like addition, subtraction, we want to make sure we use subtraction, not the negative symbol. And then we type in the number 10. And now to get to x, we do not use the letter x. Like I know this alpha key has the letter x, but the calculator won't read that as a variable. We need to get the variable x from this button. It's like next to the alpha button, which is a different color than the other buttons. And it says xt, and then it has a symbol on it called theta, and then the lowercase n. So you want this button, and your calculator should put an x. Now, if your calculator puts a variable other than an x, you need to talk to me or another teacher to fix that because it just means you're not in the correct mode. All right, so we now have y equals 200 minus 10x. And I'm sure you're tempted to hit graph, but if we hit graph right now, we might not see the graph the way we want to see it. So the next thing we have to do is figure out a window. So if I look at this graph is in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. We could also say y equals b plus mx. That's really the form this one is in. So my y-intercept is 200, and my slope is negative 10. So if I think about this, I need to come up with a good window to view this graph. So when you, what you want to do is hit this button next to y equals that says window. And if I look, I've got my x min and my x max. X scale is what SCL stands for. Y min, Y max, Y scale, and then a bunch of other stuff I'm going to tell you not to worry about. So when we connect this with what we've learned about domain and range, there's a connection here. We said that domain is our least x to greatest x, and range is our least y to greatest y. So, sorry, I'm writing on this note card. When we think about that, our domain is like our minimum to maximum x values, and our range is our minimum to maximum y values. So if I think about that, going back to my equation again, we said our y-intercept is 200. So if we go to window, we know we want our maximum y value to be at least 200. I'm going to make mine 250. So I went all the way down to y max and put 250. For y minimum, I'm not sure. I might only need it to go down to the x-axis, which is where y equals 0. I might just type -10 for now so that I can see some values below the axis. We're going to leave the x scales and y scales alone. For now, for the x minimum, let's just try -10. And let's see, for the x maximum, let's say at least 30. So make sure in your window you have -10, 30, -10, and 250. Now we're going to leave everything else alone, but now let's hit that graph button. Wow. So it graphs the function, and we shouldn't be surprised that it's linear because looking at this, it follows the model for a linear function.